Late night, after watching horror movies at a remote campsite, Alex wakes up to find his friend Colin missing. Venturing into the dense, shadowy woods to search for him, Alex makes a horrific discovery that will change his life forever. What vicious creature lurks within the darkness of the forest? Can Alex escape the woods alive, or will he fall prey to the gruesome predator? Get ready for a chilling camping trip gone terribly wrong in this nightmare-inducing creepypasta. Hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more scary stories that will have you sleeping with one eye open. When Colin suggested a camping trip, just the two of us out in the middle of nowhere, I was skeptical. I'm not really the rustic, roughing it type. But he insisted it would be fine. Come on, it'll be an adventure, he said with his usual easygoing charm. Fresh air, campfires, sleeping under the stars, it'll be fun. He eventually wore me down and soon we were driving deep into the remote forest preserve, the paved roads turning to gravel then finally dirt. Colin had picked out the perfect isolated spot, a small clearing beside a tiny creek, surrounded by heavy woods. As we set up camp, I had to admit there was a certain tranquil beauty to it out here. The trees sighing in the breeze, squirrels darting around, the trilling of birdsong. Like stepping into another world where the modern hustle was far away. That first night we built a fire, roasted hot dogs and drank a few beers. When it got dark, we rolled out our sleeping bags and gazed up at the starry sky through the clearing in the trees. See, what did I tell you? Colin said. This is the life. I had to agree. There was something rejuvenating about being immersed in nature like this. Breathing cool, pine-scented air. The crackle of the fire and the quiet sounds of the woods were relaxing. As we lay there gazing at the stars, Colin said, "Let's stay up all night. I brought some horror movies we can watch on my laptop." I laughed. Horror movies, really? We're out in the middle of nowhere. But the idea did sound fun. We ended up watching some cheesy old slasher movie, huddled around the laptop in our sleeping bags. The exaggerated gore and screams provided some silly scares amidst the darkened forest. I found myself glancing warily around at the trees, pulled in by the movie's atmosphere. Eventually we both passed out, lulled to sleep by the gentle forest sounds. At some point I stirred briefly to the hooting of an owl nearby. Then my eyes drifted closed again. When I woke next, the clearing was bathed in pale dawn light. The fire was mere embers. Blearily rubbing my eyes, I glanced over at Colin's sleeping bag. He was already up, probably went to go take a leak in the woods. I decided I'd make us a nice hearty breakfast. As I got the fire going and started cooking up some eggs and bacon, I figured Colin would come sauntering back soon smelling the food. But an hour passed and there was no sign of him. The breakfast spread was ready, eggs cold. Wiping the sleep from my eyes, I walked to the edge of the clearing and called out for him. "Colin. Food's ready, man." The trees whispered in the wind, but there was no reply. Where could he have gone? My heart started thumping as I considered what might have happened to him out in these remote woods all alone. Grabbing my jacket against the morning chill, I set off walking into the trees, following what looked like a trail. Cupping my hands around my mouth, I shouted his name. After walking for several minutes, I came to a gurgling creek, but no sign of Colin. I continued on, calling out periodically. The trees here were more densely packed, almost stifling. Shadows danced around me, and I couldn't shake the unnerving feeling of being watched. Of something lurking just out of sight. Then I saw it, a flash of Colin's red jacket hanging from a tree branch. I hurried over but choked back a scream when I saw the jacket was tattered and crusted with dried blood. Panic flooded me. What the hell happened to him out here? Colin. I shouted desperately. Colin, where are you? I spun around frantically, eyes darting around the woods. A snapping twig whipped my head to the left. There, about 20 feet away, a pale figure stood half hidden behind a tree. Too tall and thin to be Colin. In the shadows, it almost looked like. The figure bolted, darting swiftly on all fours between the trees. Wait! I cried out, sprinting after it. Have you seen my friend? I pursued the thing for what seemed like ages, getting further lost. It remained elusive, always scurrying just out of view. Heavy branches scratched my arms as I chased at it blindly. Finally, I burst into another tiny clearing. Gasping for breath, I scanned for any sign of the figure. As I crept forward, the grotesque stench of rotting meat invaded my nostrils. That's when I saw Colin's body laying at the base of a massive oak tree. Or at least, what remained of it. His torso was ripped open, organs spilled out onto the forest floor, now crawling with maggots. The body looked partially eaten. I collapsed to my knees, nauseous. This couldn't be real. It had to be some horrific nightmare. I wailed Colin's name in anguish. A rustling in the underbrush startled me. I glanced up to see the thing emerging slowly from the shadows, as if curious at my presence. My mouth went dry in numbing terror. The creature stood at least 7 feet tall, rail-thin limbs jutting at odd angles like a spider. Its flesh seemed to cling tightly to its skeleton, gray and shiny. It moved in a bizarre, jerking gait like an insect learning how to walk upright. But the worst was its face, frail skull covered in translucent pale skin so I could see the muscles and veins underneath. Large, filmy eyes that stared right through me above a row of tiny razor-sharp teeth. The being crept closer, letting out an unearthly guttural wheeze. This had to be the monster that butchered my friend. Revulsion and bloodlust surged within me. I let out an anguished battle cry and charged straight at the thing with my bare hands. If I was going to die out here, I was taking this fucker down with me. The creature's screech pierced my ears as I slammed into it. We tumbled to the ground, clawing and snarling. Up close, its stench overwhelmed me. I grabbed its head, pummeling it against the dirt. Wailing in rage, I smashed the thing's face over and over until its skull caved in with a sickening crack. Blood sprayed my face as I kept pounding, primal instinct taking over. By the time I finally stopped, ribs heaving and soaked in blood, there was nothing left but a pulpy, twitching mess of flesh and mashed bone. Somehow I'd won. I crawled over to what remained of Colin's body. As I gently closed his lifeless eyes, my tears streaked trails down my blood-spattered face. Then I sat there for hours, cradling him, until hazy shock took hold. Eventually night fell and I stumbled back through the woods half delirious, guided only by a distant fleeting hope that I'd somehow find my way home again. The authorities keep interrogating me, suspecting foul play. But I know it was that thing in the woods that slaughtered Colin. I just pray whatever monstrosity I left dead out there is the last of its kind. That I somehow put an end to the hellish abomination known as the rake. Colin's gone. They all think I'm crazy. But I know the truth of what lurks among the trees. And it will haunt me until my final days. Sometimes real darkness descends with the night. And only the light of dawn can save you. If you live to see it again.